On today's episode of Gathering the Kings.
It's
Yeah.
interesting when you do that because people just get so discarded. They realize you're not out there with a knife to their throat trying to get a sale. It's like, I don't need you to continue to be successful in business. I've got a roster of people I'm working for already. But if you want to level up and do the things that we're doing over here, we're happy to have you. Being nonchalant about it, I think helps way more than just being like pushy about it and trying to really just push it down somebody's throat.
What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings podcast. I've got Ryan Snaadt here on the King stage. My brother, how we doing?
How's it going, Chaz? Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, man. Hey, I appreciate you being here. Two Midwest fellas talking on the
We're
stage
probably,
today.
3 hours away from each other?
Yeah,
Stone's
yeah.
throw. Stone's throw.
That's right. In the grand scheme of the internet world, a stone's throw. You're right. We might as well be backyard friends. You know, I'm glad that you're here. I'm excited for this, though, because we haven't had a whole lot of folks specifically in what you do. And I think that you're going to be able to provide some just really unique value here to the listener. So tell us what kind of business that you got, brother.
Yeah, sure. Well, thanks again for having me on, man. The business that I own, it's called Snaadt Media Group, so it's named after my last name, goofy last name, but it rhymes with odd is what I always tell people. But I'm basically a video marketer based here in Central Iowa, and I help businesses produce and script content that drives results for people. So it's similar to just video production, but the thing that makes me different and my team different is we really try to build out a marketing strategy for folks and try to merge the gap between, an agency and a production team, because I come in, we can talk about this. I come from the agency world and I saw a huge hole in the market of people that are really good with the camera, but that have no clue what their clients are using their videos for. So that's
right.
really the core of what I do. So
I love that. And you're right. I'm even thinking about some of my own experiences with agencies and or even video production teams that we've used. And there is a gap. It's like two separate arms and they often don't talk to each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just trying to merge the business with the creative and make it really, really streamlined for people. So
I love that. Well, it's interesting because, before you told me how to say your last name, I was on your website and searching around, and I loved actually on there, be bold, be odd. Now that I know that it rhymes with your last name, that makes perfect sense now, but I loved it regardless. Be bold, be odd. Is that mantra a marketing thing? Is that really what you believe? Tell us about be bold, be odd.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always look at marketing as, if you're trying to do what other people are doing in your industry, it's the opposite of what you want to do, right? I always tell the example when I worked in the agency world that it was notorious that a car dealership locally would start running ads on TV, and then all 5 of the other ones would start doing the exact same thing.
Right.
They would just, well, if our competition's on TV, we should be on TV. And it was like, what are you guys doing? Like, you got to zig when your competitors zag. That's the whole point of marketing. So for me, I really lean into that philosophy and knowing that if you're being different than other people, that's what's going to get the attention. So really, like we said, being bold, being out there with yourself. I talk with plenty of business owners and people that run marketing departments that try to play it safe. It's not the way to go, in my opinion. Like, you'd rather have people talking about you than just being noise, because there's too much crap out there and too much fluff. You might as well stand out in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to press into this here in a few minutes, because the way that you're thinking about this, as far as being, maybe the oddball or the one that's doing things different, zigging when everyone's zagging, I've actually always felt that way, but I always feel like there's like this like oppressive thumb coming down on me from marketing worlds of no, if it works, don't rearrange the order. And so I think there's a creative genius here that we can get into. But before we do that, I want to know you already said why your business is different, but what's like burning inside of you? What's on the inside of Ryan that makes Ryan so unique and different and after this thing like you are?
Sure. Yeah. I think for me, like my interest stems from trying to build a life and a lifestyle that is conducive to growth, but also to scratch those creative itches, right? When I left college, I really thought corporate was my world. I went and interviewed everywhere, and I saw the death in some of these people's eyes when I'm like, what do you do for work? And they're like, I'm an analyst 3. And I'm like, no, I don't want this. Like, stay away. So like, just the pursuit of just being authentically myself and trying to just be doing the things that I enjoy. I think about all the things that I like. I love fitness. I love business, marketing. I try to merge all those things together. I shoot a lot for fitness companies and corporate fitness and gyms and stuff like that to try to scratch that itch, but also building online programs and business and what would I call it? Like digital products online to scratch that itch, trying to just build a lifestyle and a business that fits the way I want to go about life.
Yeah. What do you think has, I guess, what's inside of you that makes you want to build? Right? Like what is the greater maybe desire, or what's the outcome, or what's the why?
Sure. I think the piece of it that I think is interesting is we're at such a pivotal time in human history where it's easy to do these things. I mean, you talk about my grandparents owned a grain mill in our small town, like our 600 person small town when I was really
Yeah.
little. And that was like third generation to get it to that size. And it took literally 100 years to get it to the point where it was making decent money. Or now you
Right.
can literally open a Shopify store and be a millionaire in 2 months. Like it's just ridiculous how like different the world landscape is. Everyone that I know has side hustles. They do fun things they enjoy. They're making money from it, selling their art, making music, do whatever. Like there's just so much opportunity to do those things.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people trade passion for a paycheck, but I think there's a way that you can merge both in this world, and that's really what I'm trying to do is to take the things that I enjoy doing and make a living from it.
Yeah. What would you say to the person listening right now? Maybe they're running a business that once upon a time they were, really excited about, or that it itched, those things for them, whatever those things are. But maybe just over the course of time, over the course of building, right? Because it's not always the fun stuff inside of building. There's hard stuff too. And so you're saying that it's worth it. But for the guy listening right now, or the gal listening right now who's building and maybe he's lost sight of that passion that you're talking about, that creative itch, whatever that is for them, how do they get back to that? Or how would you suggest that they get back to that?
Sure. I mean, there's definitely a point in time where you have to look yourself in the mirror and be like, this is gonna suck for a while, but once I get to that hump, then it'll be better, But I think if
Right.
you're realistic about it, then you can start looking at logistics of okay, if I say you run a brick and mortar business, it's like how long do I have to be the front desk person until I can hire someone? How long? What do I need to do to get those things? So I think figuring out what tasks and what types of jobs within your business that you really enjoy doing, figuring out the shortest path to get to that point, I think is super huge. Because a lot of people are like, well, I hate sales, but it's the one thing that brings money in the door. So I'll just keep doing it. It's like, how much happier would your life be if you hired a really kick ass salesperson? And
Right.
then you can go back to baking cookies in your bakery because that's what you started the business for in the first place. So I
Right.
think really trying to figure out what lights you up inside. Because for me,
Yeah.
like I'm the one creative in the entire state of Iowa that is not obsessed with shooting on a camera and editing. Like I'm really good at it. Been doing it for almost 10 years now, but it's not the thing that lights me up. Like I love building my business. I love helping business owners, marketers, like get the thing that gets them more money, that makes them
Right.
happier, that hits their goals, that gets them the promotion. Like I love that side of it. So I think that's really like trying to
Yeah.
find the pieces in the business that light you up and really leaning into those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you just gave some great examples there, especially even for you saying, yes, I'm a creative, but really what I've loved is the building of the business process, not so much necessarily the shooting or the editing. Although, like you said, you've done those things and that could be translated into any business, whether it's marketing, whether it's, building something physical like a home or doing something on a commercial project of sorts, or, doing real estate. Like we've had all those people here on the show. And it's like, man, we got to pick their lane. I want to hear a little bit about your story. You've been doing this thing for 10 years, you said, but tell us a little bit about that journey. What were you even doing maybe before that?
Sure. Yeah. So I would say kind of my story started in college. I would say my freshman summer of college, I tried to get an internship in Des Moines, and internships at the time said, hey, you need an internship to get this internship. So I moved home. You need experience to get an entry level internship, right? So I moved home and worked at the local meat plant for the summer. My mom got me a job out there, and it was 10 p.m. until 8 a.m. night shift.
Oh,
And luckily didn't get I mean, it's like we made Vienna sausages, Hormel chili. Like I was like, please don't put me in the cooking area because I'm just going to smell like burned meat all the time. Right. So
yep.
long story short, I got packaging, was really happy. So I was like almost asleep at my machine, sitting there hitting a button at 2 a.m. And a guy kicks the door open and he's frantic and he's got like red stuff all over his face. And he's like, you, and I said, what? And he's like, there's been an explosion in the chili room. Like, we need you to come here quick. I'm like, okay. So I run down to the chili room. They put me in a Oompa Loompa smock and the muck boots and give me a shovel. And he's like, just try to breathe out of your mouth. I was like, okay. So they open this door, and I don't know if you've ever seen those huge propane tanks that are out in like
Oh,
fields that have propane in them. We had 6 of those, but they were full. They were like ovens that were cooking Hormel chili. Well, the guy that was running those ovens, he fell asleep at his machine
oh
and they
no.
exploded it. And it was like volcanic chili Pompeii all over the floor. And there was like, they almost chin to knee deep chili. And I spent the next like 4 or 5 hours of my shift shoveling chili into a bucket, and it smelled terrible because it was burned to all hell. And there's a
Wow.
point at that time where I was like 19. I was going to college, but I was kind of like, I don't know really what I want to do. And as I was shoveling that stuff, I just stopped for a second. I'm like, I never want to do this crap again. I never want to like do a job that just sucks so bad that I'm like miserable at. And there were people that were there that were career guys that were doing it for like 40 years and they were just so happy to have a good paycheck because they didn't go to college or do anything that they wanted to
Yeah.
do, which is fine. That's perfectly fine. But I'm like, this is not for me. So anyway, long story short, fast forward, I ended up going to college. I never missed a class again. I was like, I'm graduated, I'm getting my degree and I'm doing what I want to do. So that was kind
Wow.
of what propelled me there. And then basically graduated college. I started shooting videos though in college. And kind of my intro to video production was I got a GoPro for Christmas from my grandma before I went to my European study abroad trip. So I went to Europe, shot a bunch of videos on my GoPro, thought it was really cool. Came home and was like up all night editing on Windows Movie Maker, which is like a free editing tool. And it's very, very basic. So I was like, oh, this is so cool. Put my video together. And I think I was kind of hooked after that point. I started making a ton of videos, super into fitness. So I started doing a fitness YouTube channel. So I did weekly uploads for an entire year. So 52 uploads while I was going to school and working and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, I got 40 subscribers and nobody was watching my videos. So then I kind of took a pause. I'm like, well, I'll just like kind of table this for a little bit. And then another year went by and I was working at Target at the time and I found a camera in the camera kit that was on clearance. It's like a $500 T5i, which is like a very basic. I mean, it can only shoot 1080p video. It doesn't even use slow motion.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm gonna buy this and see what I can do. And basically took that camera and in 1 year made about $10,000 with it, just shooting like nights, weekends, little projects here and there. And I was like, wow, this could be something here because it's like I'm not even trying that hard, and this just made a good chunk of money for a broke college student. This is pretty
Seriously.
good. So
Yeah.
that was kind of my intro to starting to shoot videos.
Wow. And what was that moment for you that you said, okay, like I'm taking this thing from a, hobby from a $500, discounted camera to I'm going to build a business around this.
Yeah, yeah. So I took basically against most of the people I knew at the time, I took almost all the profit from that year, basically like 8 or 9 grand, and I went and bought 2 or 3 more 4K cameras, a gimbal, like upgraded my kit substantially.
Yeah.
And that's basically the kit that I've been running for the last 10 years. I mean, I've been adding stuff, but I'm also like a very frugal purchaser of gear where a lot of people I talk to, like they solely run a business so they can write off
Buy
all
more
their
gear.
camera addiction.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're like crackheads, but instead of crack, it's camera gear. They just love that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what got me into it. And then, I graduated. I ended up getting a job right out of college that I kind of built within a company that didn't exist. It was a video production company of about 20 people. And they did large scale productions for grocery chains in the area. Like the prerequisite was most projects were not under 25,000. So you do a 30-second video for like 30 grand or 40 grand or
Wow.
whatever.
Yeah.
So that was a huge opportunity for me. I basically worked there for 4.5 years, built this role from nothing that I had that got them like recurring revenue. So we started doing marketing retainers for clients, and agriculture is huge in Iowa. So ag
Yep.
podcasts and insurance and stuff like that. So industries I wasn't super interested in, but the conversations I got to sit in on were invaluable because I got to learn how to negotiate a deal for like 120 grand for a video or two, and shooting stuff for like Berkshire Hathaway, like Warren Buffett's company, and like all these crazy projects. And I'm like,
Right.
these people don't have the secret sauce. They just know how to sell it. So it's like, that was a really cool opportunity.
Yeah.
So I did that for 4.5 years. And then all the while I was still shooting nights and weekends. And then kind of my breaking point was coming up towards the last year when I was working there. I took all 2.5 weeks of my PTO and did nights and weekends. And I would work 12 hours a day for like 4 days or 3 days, get my 40 hours in. And then I would take off on a Friday and go to like Kansas City and shoot for a client down there for 3 days, or I'd go to Minnesota for a while. Like I would bulk my time. And then I was basically just going all over the place shooting nights and weekends. And I was working like 80 hours a week. And I was like, this is kind of the time to jump. So I made the jump and haven't looked back since. So
Yeah. I hear that story, and I want to point out to the listener that this is like what I would suggest is like the best way to live as an entrepreneur, but without, just giving up everything recklessly, abandon all the things that worked. And it's very similar to what I did, which is, it's not that I never ever took a leap. There was a point in time where I left a 6-figure job and took a leap on my first business. But there was always something that I had in the background, very similar to what you have going on here, where you just kept doing your thing until it just basically took over. And it's like, I literally can't do this anymore. I have to focus on this. And I'm not a like an anti burn the ships type of a guy. I think that there are some people who need to burn the ships now and you have no money, but just go and do the thing. But I just think that the way that you did it, you described yourself as a pretty frugal, or maybe prudent might be a better word, is that process that you just described is very prudent. It's very like diligent and very like, okay, I'm calculated about my risk here, and I'm going to do this thing long enough until I just physically can't, and then I'm going to go press hard into this other thing. So congratulations, man. I just really impressive story. What do you think
Thank you.
allowed you to do that for so long? Because there's so many entrepreneurs possibly even listening right now, and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't do both. I don't have any enough time. Or maybe they're already in their own business and they're already saying, I can't do all this. It's too much, What gave you the prudence or the diligence maybe to be able to do both of those for so long?
Sure. Well, I would start with I'm probably the worst entrepreneur ever because I do not like taking risk. I'm like the anti-risk entrepreneur, which is like literal dictionary definition is like a business owner that
Yes.
takes a ridiculous amount of risk to start a business.
Yes.
And I'm like the opposite of that. I'm like I'll just take a little bit here and there. So that's the first part. The second part was it was a perfect storm of where I was in life. So I was in my early 20s. My wife and I had just bought a really cheap house. We weren't like starting a family right away. We weren't taking on a bunch of extra expenses. So that was part of it too. So timeline wise, I like had the flexibility and the interest to do it. Where if somebody
Yeah.
were to start this and they're 40 and they've got 5 kids, like it's a different story.
It would be different. Yeah.
The other piece of it too was I was kind of, I hate to say like lazy with it, but at the early years, I'd make like 20 to 60,000 in the business and I wouldn't take a paycheck because I had a full-time job. So my stupid
Yeah.
ass would keep money in I would like pay taxes on it and just keep it. And I wouldn't even pay it out to myself. I wouldn't even use it because I'm like a penny hoarder. Like I can't do it. So the breaking point for me was I was engaged. My wife's a super spender. And I'm like, as you can tell, like a penny pincher.
Not.
So
Yeah.
we make a great team, right? So she would just spend money like crazy, but it wasn't our money yet. But once we were engaged, it was really bothering me because I'm like, oh man, this is gonna be sucky when we get married, and like she's gonna spend all of our money and whatever.
She's going to drain it.
Yeah. So then one of my buddies, who's also a filmmaker, he had went to Iowa State. He was a kicker for Iowa State. His name's Cole Netton. So if any Cyclones fans know, he was the kicker for them a couple years ago. And him and his wife paid off $42,000 in debt in 11 months. And he was unemployed for half of that time because he quit his job to start a filmmaking business. So
Wow.
I heard his story and I'm like, how'd you do it? So his financial coach, his name's Travis. Shout out to Travis. He changed my life.
That's
Basically met with him 6 months before our wedding. And he said, hey, let's calculate all your debt. So we realized like between the two of us, we had $116K in debt.
Wow.
And he's like, hey, we could get all this paid off in a year and a half if you guys really focus and have a goal. And I was like, there's no way. Like, there's absolutely no way. So we ran the numbers. Truth was, if she stopped spending as much and I actually paid myself out of my business and
Right.
we really cut our expenses down, we could do it. And lo and
Yeah.
behold, we did. We paid it all off in probably 18 months. We paid off $116,000 in debt, everything besides our house. And the huge driving point for that was like, I have to put my foot down on this business and just dump gasoline on it and just, it has to blow up. So once I had the why in my life, the business tripled. I was making a 6-figure income on the side while I was working at my full-time job. And I never saw any of that money because it all went to all the debt collectors. But once that was out of the smoke and we went on our honeymoon and we were done, and I was like, oh my God, if I did this for one more year, like I'd have so much money. And that's what really pushed me to do it, was having a really strong why.
Yeah. So, I asked you your why already, but I have to ask now because that why is gone. What's the maybe more tangible why that you're after right now? What's the target rather that you're after now since debt's gone and you're still building, you're still pushing. You obviously built a successful business. What's kept you going? What's on the radar?
Sure. Yeah. I would say like current trajectory definitely is having like shorter term business goals. For me, big one this year was like get a commercial space. I did that in February, so I'm in it right now. Second would be to hire my first like part-time, full-time employee. Currently have a roster of like 15 contractors that we use, which can get expensive. So making, again, like I'm the weirdo that like, I love the growth, like just the little tiny bits, like the success won't come to me when I'm sitting on a golden throne covered in like the Scrooge McDuck type thing. Like it's the process of getting there that has been super exciting for me and just really fulfilling. So having those little things here and there, but then also, I mean, my wife and I have a son, we have another one on the way. So like providing a lifestyle for them. And I always say like my pie in the sky is I have this weird daydream where it's like we live on a lake house. Like we live on the lake now, but like having like a very specific like vision of like
Yep.
life, like what that lifestyle is like, the fun we're doing, and it's not out of reach at all. So I think that's really
Yeah.
the thing that drives me is like having that picture. It's kind of like your vision board or your mood board. It's like having that really stuck
Yeah.
in my head all the time.
Yeah, I love that. I've got a specific time on Wednesdays. I read a visualization that I've created every single day, but on Wednesdays specifically, I take time after I'm done reading it to close my eyes and actually visualize it, which is exactly what you're talking about. So I appreciate that. The one thing I heard you say though, I gotta poke a little, not fun, but like almost like a wow, is I don't know if you guys, the listeners, were paying attention there, but he says I'm a 7-figure entrepreneur and I have no employees. Holy moly. That is a cranking business. And I know you got vendors and subs that you're using for different parts, but that's incredible to have a successful business like you do and to have done it in a structure that enables you to kind of do your thing, which I think is just really, really cool. It's very 2023, just like how
Right.
businesses are being done today. It's why people ask me all the time if I'll get a commercial space, and I'm like, you know what? I got team members in Arizona, in Nebraska, in Kansas, in Missouri, in England, in the Philippines. Like, what am I going to do with a commercial space? I got my studio here in the house. And guess what? When I get done here, I'm going to go hug my kids. Like, why would I want that any different, you know?
Sure.
Anyway, it's just the encouragement to the listener is like, with the way you've done it or the way that I've done it, the just strategic things that you can do inside of a business to make it your life as you just described. This is the way that
Absolutely.
you want it.
Hey, Kings and Queens, Chaz, Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow.
All right, I want to know a practical decision that you've made in this business. Obviously, you've grown it incredibly since then, but what's something that you've done that's been a good decision that you look back on and you're like, I would do that over and over and over again?
Sure. I would say for me, it was kind of leaning again on the frugality. Like there's so many chances I had to buy over the top gear. Like I said, when I worked at
Sure.
the agency, we had probably over $1 million worth of assets and like camera equipment, lighting equipment. The quality of the actual product to the client is better, but not enough that it makes it worth that X, like 10 times X the investment. So
Right.
for me, I would say like having just enough gear that is going to get you the result that you want, that you can charge top dollar for. And then
Yep.
the scalability of it too. I think that's been really the big thing for me, is just like taking small calculated expenses, but then really making sure for my projects, like I'm trying to do at least 80% profit margin on them, if not more. So having
Yeah.
a massive profit heavy business has been really helpful to really, again, have calculated growth. So you're not, you talk about some businesses like manufacturing or whatnot, you're lucky to get 10% margin, where it's like, I'm the complete opposite of that. Like I'm looking for like 80% margin in some of my projects. So really trying to have the focus on profitability on each project and keeping expenses as low as possible to help scale
Yeah.
that growth.
Yeah, I love that. How do you think that someone listening today, because I've seen this time and time again, someone gets into business or the first couple of years, and you're right, they get excited about the camera equipment, they get excited about the new trucks, they get excited about, whatever it is that they do that costs money, because they start selling. And I mean, it's not that it's hard to sell or easy to sell. Just typically when you kind of go into business, it's like, this is what you do now. So deals come to you. And so deals start coming to you. You're making money. It's really hard to go, why not upgrade? But I think you gave some practical things there for you around this video quality isn't 100x better for this, price tag. I can make it part of the best, but with this price tag, which makes it profitable. How does someone who's maybe not in cameras or in video marketing think about that for their business? Maybe give us some general thought process around frugality.
Sure. Yeah. I would say, just look at your biggest expenses on your balance sheet, on your, profit and loss statement. What's the thing that's sucking the most money out of your business? Sometimes it's owner stroke. You're just taking too much money out. Like that might be a thing. Or
Yeah.
I also feel like every time I try to make a big financial decision with my business, I always have to take a big step back and say, am I doing this to stroke my ego? Am I doing this to look cool? Like with my commercial space, I looked at purchasing right out of the gate, talked to my financial coach, a couple other people that I've worked with. They're like, absolutely don't do that, because you could be a slave to your business. Like you could own a, $500,000 commercial space or building or $1 million. And if you're like, crap, I can't make the mortgage payment on it. Now you're like, I got to like somehow make payroll. Like it adds all this extra stress where if all you had to worry about is your rent or your lease payment,
Right.
and then you can learn and that type of stuff. So I would
Yep.
say like looking at that and making sure the ego is not driving your purchasing decisions for your business. I
Yeah.
also think if you have employees, like just giving them a charge card and saying, go crazy, like there's so much lumpy purchasing going on that
Yep.
if they're just buying it because it's not their money, I think that's another piece of it too with the frugality piece. Another piece to add, the things I'm really proud that I did or excited that I did early on was diversifying. So we can talk about this more, but video production is not just the only way that my business makes money. Like I have a personal brand, a YouTube channel, I have online courses, we sell stock footage of all the shoots that we do. So if there's drone clips of certain things, we'll upload them to stock and make money from that. There's
Right.
probably 10 to 15 different ways that I personally make money through the business every month that is
Yep.
outside of just shooting video production for clients. So I think that's
Right.
really big.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I think this is right in decision making, whether it's been a good or a bad decision. I think that we can kind of tote the line here. So, what I'm hearing you say is that it's not like you're choosing another product, although you have multiple products because of this. You're doing the work of video marketing, but you're just displaying it in different ways, which happen to bring in income. Is that to you the same lane? Like you're in one lane, it just happens to express itself differently, or are you in a couple of different lanes in your mind?
Yeah, I would say I'm definitely in the same lane in terms of what I do is I shoot videos for people, and what are other branches off of that trunk of money that we can easily transition out of. Now, I'm not saying like diversify, like, oh, I should go start a junk removal business and an ATM business and I should open a bank. Like, no, that's completely different stuff. But if you already own say a vending machine business, why not also sell pop? And if
Right.
you can just put another machine next to it, and while you're already filling up the snacks, fill up the pop. The same
Right.
thing with this is like I'm already shooting videos, so I might as well have it in my contract that I own the raw clips for things that don't get used in the video. I might as well take 5 minutes and upload it to stock and make residuals on that. I might as well document what I'm doing and put it on YouTube so then people see what I'm doing and will bring me more business, but I can also make money from it. I might as well
Right.
teach other people how to start a filmmaking business and monetize that skill set. So I'm staying within my lane of like video marketing and that type of thing, but I'm
Yep.
also making money from it as many different ways as I can. So if that
Yeah.
helps for people.
Yeah, I think it's super helpful because I think that the main lane is important. And coming from an entrepreneur who, I mean, I have multiple industries, and there's a little bit of a tote of an ego, really. And you said it earlier, making sure you're checking the ego. You were talking about purchasing, but I would say that for a long time, I didn't understand the value of being in one lane, or maybe I just had a big enough ego to where I was just like, well, sure, yeah, it's just another business. I'm just growing my portfolio, but I wasn't. At this point, I'm growing a portfolio, but then I wasn't. I was just saying yes when I should have been saying no. And so I think there's a big difference that we've kind of highlighted here. I want to go back to what we talked about earlier at the beginning of this just creative process or just, zigging when everybody's zagging. This is what I think a lot of marketers say is a bad decision, but you're saying it's a good decision. So since we're here talking about how to make good decisions, let's talk about why you think it's valuable to zig when everyone else is zagging when it comes to marketing.
Sure. I think about rip-off advertisements or people that take a concept and duplicate it.
Yeah.
And my perception of that person goes way down. And I'm just going to riff on this for a second. My least favorite business in the world is Facebook or Meta because they just take concepts that are popular in other industries.
They're at Threads.
Okay, let's take the chronological route here. They couldn't keep up with Snapchat, so they stole the stories away. Now Snap is a completely dead company because they stole that feature away. Be Real was really popular, so they made Instagram Now. TikTok was kicking their ass, so they literally ripped the whole thing off Instagram Reels. They couldn't keep up with YouTube, so they made IGTV. That failed. They kicked that out. Now they can't keep up with Twitter, so they made their own Twitter. It's like, these guys are the kings of just copycatting. Like, how many people work there? Come up with an original idea. So I think that's
Right.
the big thing is like the more I see companies or anyone, especially in their marketing, rip off things that are blatant rip-offs, but not a creative spin. Like you can take something that's
Sure.
creative or unique and then spin it, which is really funny. So I think that's part of it too. It's just like coming up with unique things. But the clear thing that I always try to tell people with marketing is like, marketing and sales are very different. Marketing is more of like fishing, where sales is more hunting, right? If you go out looking for a fish with a spear gun from the like, okay, there's 100 fish. Like I'm just gonna blindly just shoot and just see if I hit something. Like marketing is just laying the baseline, casting the net, and letting them come to you. So I think that's really the delineation that people need to focus on, is that marketing can be a really good tool if you use it properly. But to your point, the making sure that it's unique is harder than it sounds, because it's like, oh, just be unique. But I think as long as you know who your core audience is, that can really steer if they're into humor, if they think things are funny, if they're more serious, really what the solution is for them. I think that's really the steering point there. A good example of this would be like a local internet provider here. They always advertise gig speed, or speeds up to 400 meg. Who the hell knows how fast that is? Like you're marketing towards your own internal people that know what that is. Like the average consumer doesn't know anything. It's like selling a car, being like, man, look how fast them pistons run. Like no one cares. Like it's, if you get in this thing, you're going to get girls or people who think you're cool, or you're going to like be a badass in a big truck. It's like, they're looking for the transformation, the end result. That's what you're selling. You're not selling the item. And that's really what marketing does.
This is really, really, really good. And I think that a lot of people skip over this. Even people who have sales backgrounds, like I do, you're right, it's hunting. And we get excited about that. Like I actually love real hunting. Like put the pack on, let's go into the wilderness and find us some elk. And let's make sure we don't bring a gun. Let's only bring a bow and arrow, because that's harder. Like let's make this thing as difficult as possible. I love it. But marketing, like you said, it's just a very different process. It's setting it all up originally, so that way then the hunting actually is way easier. And it's like these two worlds almost like fight against each other, but they should be working with each other. What would you say is more important, marketing or sales?
Oh, that's a good question. Sales is like the square meals a day, like you have to have it to eat type of thing. But marketing is the spice or the seasoning that makes it enjoyable, if that's a good way to put it. Yeah, it's like, marketing is like the thing that just, it's like the tug and pull. Like they both need each other, right? An organization that only focuses on sales, it's going to make a lot of sales, obviously, but maybe they're not as connected with the customer and how they're understanding that. So I really think, man, you're putting me on the spot. I would say, I'm a marketer, so I would say marketing could become sales. If you do good enough marketing, people will just come to you naturally, and being kind of this benevolent alpha type of thing where you're just putting out good content and people are like, hey, where do I sign? Like, where can I do more business with you? Or where can I sign up? I would say really good marketing could overcome just having a sales opportunity.
Yeah. What you just said at the end there, I think has been probably a hard reality for me and probably a lot of really good salespeople. I've not only trained thousands of salespeople, but I've created courses and all that fun stuff. And so it's like, okay, I really get it. I understand psychology, communication. I know how to walk somebody through the process, like to the end, right? But what you just said is that it's not just like the lifeblood. Sales is the lifeblood. But if you have no leads, or if you have no marketing, or if you have no people, if you have no attention, you have nobody to sell to. So they obviously are hand in hand. But that marketing piece, when I've really stepped back and like honed in on, the chicken or the egg, it's like, well, wait a second here. I could be a really good salesperson. Okay. And I can make some things happen out of a few leads, which is typically what happens. If you have bad marketing, you have a good salesperson that knows how to prospect, which is technically marketing, but it's just the salesperson out there hunting. and that's fine. But if you have good marketing that sets up that really good salesperson, it like explodes. Would you agree with this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was looking, especially from the corporate marketing side, for whatever reason, sales and marketing hate each other. And I'm like, you guys are doing the same thing. It's like customer acquisition. It's the same thing, where I see marketing as kind of the salespeople are hitting batting practice, and the marketing people are the soft tosser person throwing the ball up for the salesperson to smoke a nice home run.
Yeah.
If they don't have a good toss, they're going to hit it off to the side. It's not going to go the right way. But if they can keep lobbing up softballs for people and just keep knocking it out of the park, I think really that's what it is. And marketing, just building this pool of interested people. And like I mentioned earlier, they're the liaison between the company and the customer. They need to have the finger on the pulse and know exactly what problems are happening, what problems or concerns would make them switch to a new provider or buy a product or whatever. Everybody that does like Target knows their target audience. It's like, they're not Walmart. They are very clear about that. And like, they understand who their target audience is. They're not trying to say everything's the super cheapest, because Walmart's already doing that. So I think knowing who your customer is, who that core subset is, and just like laser focusing on that. And then as the marketing happens, you'll get feedback from customers, whether it's social media or forums or whatever, and communicating all those things and the struggles to the sales team so then they can better speak the language. Again, it's
Yeah.
like they're kind of like I wouldn't say support staff because that's not the right term, but they're
Yeah.
definitely the yin and the yang. And like you have to have both to have a really successful, bigger, larger company.
That's right. What would you say, last piece here on marketing for the listeners who are building a business? Maybe they're 7 figures, maybe they're not. I don't think that part really matters. It's more so of just maybe like how much they understand, this marketing piece. We hear what you just said, like knowing your avatar or knowing your ideal customer, knowing what they like, what they don't like, or what you provide to them. And like, we hear this a lot is my point. And it's like, okay, yeah. Like we kind of like, yeah, okay, well, glance it over or glass it over. But I've even just recently here gone through this again myself. And I'm like, oh, I could be more clear on this. I know these people, but I could be more clear here, and here because I really know them, but there's a gap here in the understanding of what I do to be able to solve their problems. How important is this? This is such a basic thing. It's almost like marketing 101 is like know your target avatar or your target audience. But like I think it gets missed over. Like I think a lot of people just, yeah, this is who I serve. And then they move on to the other cool marketing pieces. But it's actually probably more important than that. Would you agree with that? Would you have any hindsight here for us?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I would say, I mean, and this helped a lot, like I said, in my agency years, because I worked in the big agency. I knew what they did and they knew what they did. It's like large scale production, right? We're not doing weddings. We're not doing real estate. Like we only shoot large scale productions for other agencies or for large companies, right? There were a lot of holes with that model that I saw. One was cash flow. You get large $100,000 project and then you never hear from them again. It's like, well, crap, how are we going to make payroll? But the
Right.
other piece of it too is like knowing again how I position my business. It's like, okay, here's the market, here's the different buckets you can be, here's the bucket I'm in, and here's the things that make us different. And people tell me that all the time. Oh, well, I'm shopping around for a couple different. I'm like, that's fine, but if you go talk to this person, here's what they're going to say. Blah blah blah. Like knowing the market, knowing the differentiators, and just knowing where you fit in the grand scheme of your industry helps
Right.
a lot. Because then when people go out and they go and they shop a little bit more and they have a sales process with another company or another service provider or another product, and then you're right. Everything you just said was right. It's like, oh yeah, they did only talk about this, or they only, now you've built some credibility. And I always tell people too, again, like my sales process is very the benevolent alpha type, like you can do whatever you want. Like I'm just here to help type thing. And it's
Yeah.
interesting when you do that because people just get so discarded. They realize you're not out there with a knife to their throat trying to get a sale. It's like,
Right.
I don't need you to continue to be successful in business. Like I've got a roster of people I'm working for already, but if you want to level up and do the things that we're doing over here, we're happy to have you. Kind of being nonchalant about it, I think helps way more than just being like pushy about it and trying to really just push it down somebody's throat.
Yeah. Understood. Okay. So keeping on this marketing vein, what's a good resource? Podcast, maybe it's your YouTube channel, maybe it's a book, or maybe something in all 3 categories. What would you recommend that we grab that we can learn some skills in marketing?
Sure. Yeah. In terms of book, I would say the One-Page Marketing Plan by Alan Dibb, super great concept just to simplify the hell out of your marketing. Everybody's trying to, well, I need to do Instagram, I need to do TikTok, I should write blogs, but it's like simplify it. And Alan Book's a really good one to look at because in the same thing we've been talking about, marketing is a function of sales. If it's not driving revenue to your bottom line, it's not marketing. You're just trying to do stuff, right? So
Yeah.
that's a great book. In terms of like videos and stuff, I mean, there's tons of podcasts out there. Yeah, I think the book would probably be the best place to look for. And then I do plenty of video marketing topics on my YouTube channel as well. So if people want to check it out there, there's plenty of videos about how to use video in your marketing and stuff like that.
Love that. Well, we'll put all that in the show notes as well. And that way they can check you out, check out the book as well. I got a question for you about family. You've mentioned, some targets that you had around building a lifestyle for your family, but this question will be a little bit different. I'm a fan of obsession. Like this is what we've done in our business. We've obsessed in order to be successful. And I don't believe in balance. And so what that means is that I need to also obsess over my wife and obsess over my kids and all the other things that I love, right? So my question to you is, how have you been obsessive in your marriage or in your family at the same time as building this incredible business?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say just being on the same page. There's some seasons in life where you're going to be working a lot longer hours, harder, the growth periods, that type of thing. But also knowing that as a business owner, you have the flexibility to decide what you do with your time. So that's super key. I think for me, especially in the last year, my son was born. I took a lot more time off than I expected to, but because I had the business set up in a way that I could continue to grow it while I wasn't here with contractors and other things, it
Right.
gave me the time to focus where I needed to focus. So I think just having those non-negotiables in your life are really important, and people will respect you a lot more if you're not just a pushover with your time. If somebody calls you on a Saturday at 11 and they're like, "Hey, I need this report in by Monday," it's like, no, like my hours are this time. Like saying no is super powerful. So I think just having
Yeah.
things in place that are your non-negotiables and the things you spend time on, but also
Yep.
knowing that if you're in that early building part of your business and you're listening, like I did with my business, like I didn't spend a whole lot of time with my wife during the week because I was just busting my butt to try and get things
That's right.
paid and get the money coming in and get the business off the ground. So
Yep.
just knowing what season of life you're in, I think is super key.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. It's interesting about the power of saying no is that oftentimes it's yes, but just on your terms. And right, so like Saturday at 11, hey, we need this back, as soon as possible. And typically, when we've been trained to say yes, we just say yes, I'll get it done, and we stop what we're doing and we just do it for whatever reason we don't know. It's not like they asked us to do it necessarily right now. They just need it by Monday, but this is what we do. As opposed to saying, absolutely, I'll get to that first thing Monday morning for you. Is that what you would like me to do first thing Monday morning for you? And then letting them decide how priority it is, letting them know that the next availability that you have is Monday at 8:00 or whatever the scenario is. So I appreciate that, man. It's a poised answer. So I appreciate it. I got one last question here for you. Ryan, if you had the opportunity to whisper in the younger Ryan's ear, what would you tell that dude?
Jump earlier. I was just so clung to my full-time job thinking that was security and safety. And the truth is like you have to always bet on yourself. So I would
Yeah.
say if I had to whisper a little earlier, it would be more strategic about growth, commit verbally, tell people like I am leaving my job in the next 6 months, I'm leaving in the next year, and I'm doing this thing. But more so than that, have a really clear vision for what you want the business to be when you're there. I was trying to just shoot anything and everything early on, like, weddings,
Yeah.
real estate, traveling all over the place. Know your lane. Like for me, it's corporate and fitness. Those are the two things I shoot a ton of. And that's, again, a differentiator. But for me, I would say jump earlier and believe in yourself. Trust in the process and know that when you make your own luck in life, like you're never going to let yourself down. When it's always up to you, you will find a way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting that that's what I congratulated you on, but it is, you gave a really cool depiction there of it's not that you wouldn't have chosen prudence. It's that you just would have maybe pressed on the gas a little sooner so that you could have left a little sooner. So I actually really, really appreciate that perspective because it wasn't just, no, I wish I would have been more reckless.
Yeah, I would have just like drove it off the cliff and build the parachute on
Yeah.
the way down type thing. Yeah.
Yeah, which could have been the answer. And I think for some, they have to do that. They have to whisper to themselves or to someone else, like, just jump, just go. Who cares? Some people need to hear that message too. But press on the gas sooner is your message, and I appreciate that. Ryan, how can we find you? Number one, you've just identified fitness and corporate, but you also say you're this liaison between like agency and also marketing, and you can kind of facilitate both, strategy as well as video. So tell us maybe who you serve the best or maybe some examples. And that way, if they're listening, they can find you and then how to find you.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say my sweet spot is definitely like larger corporate fitness industry clients. So whether that's large gym chains, I've shot with a lot of like down in Oklahoma, there's a gym chain down there, 12 locations. So we do all of their marketing for them. We go down for a whole day or a whole week and shoot their entire quarter's worth of videos in 4 days. So we shoot like 30 or 40 videos in 4 days. That's really like the sweet spot that my team and I focus on is we show up, we shut it down, we knock it out, and then we leave. That's kind of the whole focus there. But again, the liaison between marketing and conversion, that's a really big thing for me. Corporate clients that are trying to figure out how the hell do we do marketing with video, because it's the best way to communicate with people. So that's really the focus there. If you want to learn more, snaadmedia.com. I'm sure we'll put a link down below. You guys can check out some case studies, see what people are doing, maybe learn a couple different angles you could do for your business, even if we don't work together. But there's a bunch of stuff on my website they can learn. And then if you want to learn more about me, I'm actually launching my own podcast, which should be live when this comes out. It's called the Rhymes with Odd podcast, since it rhymes with my last name. So, and on that one, we interview business owners, people that have overcome crazy obstacles to achieve success in life. So really excited about getting that off the ground and going deeper with people.
Well, I look forward to being a guest.
Absolutely.
You haven't invited me, but I just invited you.
Well, there you go. Yes.
I appreciate your willingness to share and just to be here and not only just give, but you gave some really practical stuff, man. I think that your approach, the what'd you say, the benevolent alpha, I think is actually well received. And I think there's a lot of people in business that need to hear that message to just go do the thing that you do well. Make sure you're offering it and getting attention, but it's also great just to be a giver because right things come back. And that's what I've got for you here today, man. You gave so much today and right things are going to come back to you. We wish you nothing but blessing to your family and your business, all your clients here in 2023. Thanks for being here, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.